chronically depressed. There were not a lot of opportunities down there. I went to basic training between my junior and senior year of high school, and when I came back, September 11th happened. I knew I had to take that really seriously at that point in my life, and by my 19th birthday, I was boarding a flight to Afghanistan, and I did an 18-month deployment there in 2003 and 2004. I came back to New York State. I work for New York State Department of Military and Naval Affairs. I process payroll for state active duty soldiers. Some people know what that is. When I was doing that, I ran into a man in Latham, New York, who asked me if I had ever considered DoD contracting. And he gave me a business card, and I applied, and I went back to Afghanistan for another 3.5, 4 years, where I did logistics on Kandahar Airfield. I did something called Movement Control Team, which is just planning and moving people and things around the country. So it was a great job, but one day I woke up out there, I was 25 years old, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be a wife, I want to be a mom, I want to have a kitchen I can cook in, and I want to go to college. So I came home, back to Western New York, where it's green and lovely, and I missed all my friends and families and my culture that I grew up in. And when I came home, I did all those things. I got married, I had children, I went to college, and I got a degree in special education and became a teacher. After teaching for 6 years and with some of the worst behavioral children in Western New York, which is what I specialize in, I started to get very ill. And I didn't really know what that illness was at the time, but I started having, I started throwing up every day and being very, very sick. And I had to go on disability. I was so sick. And eventually I was diagnosed with a very rare form of adrenal gland cancer called pheochromocytoma. And that was probably a result of the toxic exposures I had in Afghanistan. Of course, nobody can say 100%, but that is likely what caused it. I was very, very fortunate. I had that lovely VA medicine where they treated me for free, reimbursed me for my gas, paid for $30,000 a month medication to keep me alive, and I was cured pretty quickly. I had a major surgery where I had my adrenal glands taken out, and I went through some treatment, and I'm standing here today very happy, very healthy. I knew, even with the diagnosis, that I would likely go back to work. I like to work, makes me feel good, as probably everybody in this room knows. It feels good to collect that paycheck, and it feels good to put something into society that you feel like is beneficial. So I went back to work at the VA Education Department, and I was working there just under a year. And in February, I was doged from the VA in the first wave of layoffs without so much as an email. This kind of pushed me into this world. I was invited to be a guest to the State of the Union and to represent federal workers and VA employees, and I went and I did that. And I was on a lot of media, I was on TV a bunch of times. And when I came back to Lockport, I kind of thought, okay, that chapter's over with, I'm gonna move on. I started a political action group in Lockport that grew from 3 people sitting at a coffee table in a restaurant to 300 people protesting outside Claudia Tenney's office. Yep, and that made me really start to research more about Claudia Tenney. And I was sorely disappointed in her representation of the people of this area. I don't feel that she understands us as people. I don't think she knows what it's like to be a working person. I don't think she knows what it's like to worry about paying your electric bill in the winter. I don't think she knows what it's like to put on her boots at 4 o'clock in the morning and shovel her driveway. I don't believe that Claudia Tenney knows those things. And I think in order to be represented accurately, we need normal, average people in Congress who can actually push laws and policy that can help the people in this room and the people around us in our entire communities. In April, I was reached out to, MSNBC reached out to me and asked me to participate in 100 Days of Trump Town Hall. And somehow the VA found out about it because They reached out to me less than 24 hours later and offered me my job back with backdated pay, and then sent me a subsequent email telling me that to remind me that I would be fired again if I spoke to the media. And yeah, I told them exactly where to put their job, and I may or may not have said some colorful things in that email. I was very disappointed in their leadership. Most of the people working at VA that were laid off are average people like you or me. And I'm very lucky. My husband has a great job. It's not financially devastating for me to lose that VA job, but for many people that I worked with, it was. It was financially devastating. That is the money they pay their mortgage with. That is the money they put food on the table with. And they deserve better leadership. They deserve someone who says, no, actually, people at the VA are really overworked. They do the most they possibly can for soldiers. I watched people work behind the scenes in thankless, faceless, often really boring ways, and give back to the community that they care about in incredible ways. And it really, really deeply bothers me that our government is telling people that those people's jobs are not worth it. They are worth it. Little known fact, less than 50 people in the country are processing educational claims for veterans. There are 18,600,000 veterans and all of their dependents. Anyone who receives educational benefits is going through the education department at the VA. Less than 50 people in this country are processing those claims. Let that sink in for a second, because that means we're doing a lot of work, okay? That department is not alone. The VA is very overtaxed, and federal workers in general are very hardworking people. We have production numbers that have to be met weekly and monthly. These are not things that are debatable. The federal government is the one that sets out those standards for us, right? I want to get past this point, but I did end up going on MSNBC, and when I came home, I ran into a campaign manager who was very experienced, and he asked me to run for Congress. And after some thought and talking with my family, I agreed to do this. I just want to be a regular person. I don't think I'm better or above anybody else, and I think that's a really important part of serving in government, is that we need people who don't think that they are somehow better than the people on the ground working hard. And to me, that's really important that I have that representation in Congress, and I kept looking around like, who is gonna run? And it happened to fall in my lap, and I wanna do a great job. I look at my campaign as having 4 table legs. The first table leg is healthcare. Every person in this room, the richest person on this planet, they don't have healthcare, they don't have quality of life. They don't have the ability to have liberty and happiness. It is an incredibly important part of every person's life. I believe that every person in New York 24 should have healthcare before we give billionaires a tax break, ever again. Ever, ever. It's the single most important issue right now. The second table leg of my campaign is infrastructure. There are serious water issues along all of the lake region. In each one of the Finger Lakes along Lake Ontario, there are issues with the water intake systems. Many of these pipes are still made of lead. There are also serious rural transportation issues. Our population in New York 24 is aging. Many people start to lack the ability to get to a doctor, especially with the big beautiful bill passing. We are expecting at least 5 rural hospitals to close throughout New York 24. If that happens, that puts people a 2-hour drive away from a major hospital. Many of the elderly don't have driver's licenses. They better hope that they have really good friends and family who are available to take them to their appointments, because there is no rural infrastructure for transportation for these people to get them to the doctor, even their primary care. And that's something that I think it also affects really deeply economic growth. Young people who grow up in poverty struggle to get their driver's license. It's not easy if your parents don't own a car and can't teach you. A busing system, even if it's not a profitable busing system, is something that could benefit tens of thousands of lives in these communities. The third table leg is that I would really like to see public school extension down to infancy. And I have a very good argument for this. It would support young families. It could actually reduce costs. Medicaid is what pays for every physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and counseling in school from kindergarten to 12th grade. Medicaid is what pays for that already. I worked in a K-2 classroom, kindergarten through 2nd grade, and I saw children come in with disabilities who got treatment at school, and it would take several years by the time they're in kindergarten to treat these disabilities. It can take 2 to 4 years to treat a serious speech impediment or a serious physical disability. If we put that down at 1 year old and we start screenings at 6 months old, 1 year old in a public school setting, those kids can dramatically change. I moved from working from kindergarten, 2nd grade to working in a preschool, and I had a variance in my classroom that allowed me to teach down to 2 years old. I had a 2-year-old come in who was completely nonverbal. I mean, grunting, pointing, 0 words. We started him in speech therapy. He got the same amount of speech therapy as a 5-year-old, once a week. In 6 weeks, this child was saying words. In 12 weeks, this child was saying sentences. That shows you that there is a developmental window in people's brains. Our brains, our plasticity of our brain, our flexibility of our brain is better when we are younger. If we are going to invest in education, we should do it in a smart way. We could reduce the amount of costs that we are spending on 7 and 8 and 9-year-olds and get better outcomes if we would open up public school down to infancy. We could also appeal to a lot of middle grounders out there, people who are struggling to pay their bills. I think we could also solve a lot of welfare issues. Parents don't want to, they have 3 kids, your husband leaves you, you have 3 children. Who would choose to go work at Family Dollar to pay half of their income to daycare to have a strange 19-year-old with no education raise your child for you? No one is going to choose that. People love their children. They want to be able to participate in their lives. I think that if we could offer a better quality, we offer professionals who are educated in child development, who can actually assess your kids and teach them things during that time. I'm not saying there's no daycares that are good quality daycares. There are, but do they have a degree in early childhood education? Do they understand the developmental steps of young children? I would argue that they don't. And I would argue that a lot of families could be very helped by this. We could also keep our parochial schools, our little schools, alive. The population of children is shrinking dramatically across New York 24. I know personally there are multiple schools in these rural areas who have combined into one school because there just are not enough children to justify 2 schools. If we can keep those schools alive with the lady who's been teaching kindergarten there for 20 years, and we extend those open classrooms down to infancy, we could save a lot of money for our community. We could help a lot of families. This is really, really important to me, and I'm open to people's criticism of that, and I'm open to people's ideas for that and how to implement that. The leg that I have is candidate recruitment. We have done a mathematical analysis for my campaign on every single county in New York 24. There are a lot of places that if we just had paper Democrats running, anybody ran, that in this last election in November, a lot of seats would have flipped. Places like Jefferson County, where at least 3 county legislature seats would have mathematically flipped had anyone been on the ballot. So if you know someone who wants to run, Scott's running, that's a joke. But we want to help you. We will do anything we can to promote Democrats who want to get involved. So if you find it in your heart that you want to run for an office, it does not matter if this is like a town position, if it's a city position, if it's a county position or a state position, we will help you. We will talk about you in the media. We will bring you along on the campaign trail. We will provide you any data that you need. We will help you with petitions. We will print your petitions and we will train people how to walk those petitions properly. We will do anything we can to help other Democrats run. So that's my platform. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes?
I applaud your goals, your articulate.
Thanks.
But one of the things we've talked about even before you got here, and Scott mentioned it, was how vast this district is.
Yeah.
And one of the, well, I think that's actually an advantage for Penny because she likes things divided. That's what Republicans do. How would you go about uniting us so we can get behind some of your goals and communicate with you either during your campaign or also if you're elected? What would you do to help bring us together?
So as I'm running the campaign, of course I have a social media presence. I think it's really important, especially with the weather in this region, that we are able to communicate with people publicly. There's no way, it's 4.5-hour drive from where I live in Niagara County up to Jefferson County to the furthest point in this region. I've been to all of the counties, and I've been out to each one of the major cities, and I've been to each Democratic committee meeting. I think that unity is really important, and I think we have to show people, you know, I actually have a theory about this that is like, it comes from a psychological standpoint, and it's not so much about rhetoric, but I think that we have to talk to people in the middle, and even MAGA, and we need to treat them with respect. They're human beings that live in this district. We have to be able to lead with who we are. We have to say, okay, I'm Alissa first, then I'm a wife, then I'm a mom, then I'm a teacher, then I'm a community member, then I'm a friend, then I go to church. You know, I'm all of these things, and 37th on that list is Democrat. And what always surprises me, as I will run into Republicans, I'm a part of many groups. I'm a part of PTSD support groups in my town for other veterans, and a lot of veterans are Republican, and I will sit down with them. They've known me for 5 or 6 years, and in the last year, you know, I have started to run for Congress, and they'll be talking to me, and I'll say, oh yeah, I'm running for office, and they're like, as a Democrat? And I say, yeah. And they're like, I can't believe you're a Democrat. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I have pronounced my ideals. Like, I don't walk around telling people, you know what, you should believe like me. I lead with who I am. And shockingly, I've had multiple people, including the retired police chief from the city of Lockport, who have said to me, you will be the first Democrat I vote for in 35 years. So I think that leading with who you are is probably the most important thing you can do. And know when to argue. Facebook is not the place, guys. It's just a bunch of noise. Okay, nobody is changing their mind from a post that you make on the internet. People change their minds when they get to know you. You know, it reminds me, honestly, of church. Like, you know, what they tell you about, like, leading with who you are, leading with your heart first. And then you can talk about why you're that way, right? And I just think that that's a really important part. Are there any other questions? Yes?
We're in a terribly gerrymandered district, and I don't think that's anything new to any of us. How are you creating political infrastructure around our big gerrymandered district, so that, you know, if you are the candidate, the Democratic candidate, that, you know, we can't wait until, you know, the primary, the Democratic primary is done, because that's kind of too late. You know,
Agreed.
what are you doing to set up connections around, you know, the 24th?
So I have been out to both Democratic committees and to anyone who will invite me to talk. So I have been out to places in the most furthest regions of Jefferson County, where people like who are involved in Indivisible, people who are involved in little, smaller groups have invited me out to speak. I go out for 2 days. I talk 4 times. Morning, I do a local group. Evening, I do the Democratic committee. Morning, I have a meet and greet. Evening, I do another political action group. And I come back. So if you guys would like me to come out here and do that, I would be more than happy to do that. I love to meet people. That is part of the infrastructure. The other part is that we have used our campaign funds to purchase the data of all of New York 24. It's incredibly expensive, let me tell you. We have also purchased a texting program, okay? And before the November 4th election, we knew that Niagara County, only 13.7% of people showed up in the last odd year election to vote. 13.7%. Let's let that sink in. Okay, that is incredibly low. Niagara County has the highest population of any of the counties, and it's the only county where Democrats outnumber Republicans. And it's where I'm from. And I am an election worker. I test the machines. So we had made a plan going into the election. What are we gonna do to help local candidates? We took a look at every single local candidate that was running. We walked with people all the month of October. So I came out, I walked with several candidates here. I walked with candidates in every single county that contacted us back when we reached out. And when we went home, we designed a text and we sent it to every single person who did not vote in 2023, every Democrat who did not vote in 2023, we sent them a text message telling them, hey, this is the outlook. You really need to get out and vote. We are desperate for people to show up. The fight is really not Democrat-Republican, but it's actually getting Democrats off the couch to get out and vote. And I am not above guilting the heck out of people. I will guilt you. This is our democracy. This is our country. This is our responsibility to get out and do those things. And I'm just not shy about it. When I knock on people's door, I'm not like, oh, please go out and vote. I'm like, have you watched the news? Please, please get out and let your voice be heard. Because a lot of these local elections are decided by 20 votes.
They tell you to turn off the news.
No, I disagree with that. I mean, I do turn it off for 2 days a week because just to preserve my own sanity. Like so,
You need a day off too.
Sundays and Mondays, I do not turn the TV on. It is to give myself some reorientation time. But to answer your question, I sent out a mass text to every person in New York 24 who did not vote in 2023. And we doubled voter turnout in Niagara County, doubled. And we elected Democrats that we didn't even walk for, didn't even know we were running because of those text messages. And you saw, every person in this room has probably read the paper and knows how high voter turnout was for November 4th this year. I mean, I can't take all the credit because look at the news, but I will tell you that we put work and effort into that, and that is part of building infrastructure. We have also asked people who reach out to us, we ask them to go to our page. It's ellmanforcongress.com. You can sign up to volunteer. We have just over 100 volunteers right now for petition season. We know what the weather looks like out here. We have some ideas on how to change what petition season looks like. We can't ask people who are using a walker or a cane to go out and walk petitions, okay? Yeah, we can't do that. So instead, we want to throw things called petition parties. We're gonna rent out a pizza place. We're gonna ask every person in this room to come to our petition party and to invite every single person you know. Show up, sign our petitions, pick the candidates that you like on our table, then come eat pizza and meet the candidates. And we're gonna invite anybody who wants to run for office to come to those petition parties and sit with us. Run for an office, Scott here is the first person you're gonna contact. But if you want help, you can reach out to my team directly also on our website. And you can also come to our petition parties. This is a really great way to have, to make it feasible to get all the petitions that we want done efficiently done. Anybody else? Questions? Yes.
Yes, your 4 legs all cost money. Where does it come from? And then I have a follow-up question based on your answer.
Well, I think it's a matter of, do we continue to give tax breaks to people who make over $100 million a year? Or do we continue to not do that and not have infrastructure? In my opinion, our infrastructure is built on our tax dollars, on the backs of people like my husband, our men, right? They're the ones putting on their boots at 4 o'clock in the morning and going outside and working all day. In my opinion, Jeff Bezos should be paying for that road.
Fair enough.
Walmart.
I figured you'd go there. So
Yeah.
my follow-up question is, how do you take the influence that money has in order to make those changes to the tax law? Because you know, the money is driving a lot of decisions now. How do you get the money out of the influence of money out of the system?
So I'm one person. I can only control Alissa, okay? And I'll just be very clear. I personally have witnessed this. Have you ever worked in an office where people are miserable? Like, you ever work in an office where you're like, these people are all jerks? It takes one person to change the standard. When you walk into the office and you're happy every day, it doesn't matter what that grumpy old lady's doing over there, and it doesn't matter what that dude's saying to you, and you're in a good mood, and you're like gonna have a good time doing it no matter what, that is an attitude that you choose to have. And that actually brings people along, and it raises the standards. And I'll answer that question. I'm one person, but I plan to be the standard. I want to change the the standard we have for public service. I'm so sick of it being about the congressperson or about the governor. It's not about that person. It's about the people in your district. It's about the people in this room. It's about the people who can't make it here today because they're working their second job. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what this should be about. And I am running because I don't necessarily trust other people to not have the motivation of money. But I do trust myself because I believe that people walk around and every single person has their own currency, right? Some people are really motivated by praise. Some people are very motivated by money. Some people are very motivated by like prestige and feeling great about themselves. For me, that motivation is helping people. And it always has been. And you can look at my career to know that that's who I am as a person. I have been in public service my entire life, and I've had a lot of different unique experiences that I can bring to the table. I cannot guarantee that I can change all of Congress, okay? But I can guarantee you that I, as a person, am not in this for dollars, okay? I can sit home with my 4 dogs, finish raising my 2 older teenage children, and hang out with my husband every day very happily. I'm not making money from this. I have invested 20 grand of my own money into doing this because that is how important it is for me to change what this looks like. So to me, this is not about like, oh, I'm furthering my political career. I don't care about the career aspect of that. I care about the people in this region having real, serious representation and people who are willing to listen to them. Yes?
Hi. I'm Danielle, but you already know that.
Yes, I do.
First, I wanted to say thank you so much. You've been such a big presence in Wayne County. You know, I first met you at a local protest. You came to our house. You've come to lots of events that we've invited you to throughout the county, all summer and fall. I feel like you've really made an effort to reach out here in Wayne County, so I wanted to thank you for that. I know we're running into a to know how you plan to approach primary season and what kind of, I guess, vibe you're bringing into it.
I'm just gonna be real. I don't argue with other Democrats. I'm worried about me and my campaign. I'm worried about representing people, and I'm worried about listening to people. And I'll tell you what, I have produced a list of every Democrat in all 14 counties that live in the district. And I'm gonna try to call every single one of them, because I can't possibly go to every single door, but I can call every cell phone number. And so I have been over backwards. I've called, I think, 2,800 people in Jefferson County. I am working on Jefferson, Niagara. You'll probably be getting a call at some point.
So many
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I don't control all the text messages. I do not have a ton of input into that. I let my team worry about it. But yes, I will be calling you from my actual cell phone, not some dialer system. This phone right here will be calling you. And I'll be asking you what's important to you, because here's the reality. Like, those are my ideas, those 4 table legs. But I'm open. I want to hear what is important to every single person in this room. I want to hear what's important to the people in this region. And that to me is what it means to be a representative, right? It's not about me pushing my agenda down your throat, but it's about you teaching me about what is important in your region, right? And that's what I hope to bring. That's different. And honestly, you know, if no matter the outcome of the primary season, I'm going to be throwing every dollar of my campaign, every worker in my campaign, every volunteer behind whoever wins primary season. Because what is important right now is democracy and preserving our ideals. It is not as important what face that has, right? Anyway, anybody else? Sure.
Yeah. You raised, I like your stance on healthcare issues, but I would like to know where, as a congresswoman, this is kind of hypothetical, if you were elected, when you're elected, maybe that's even better, how are you going to address the amount of bureaucracy in our healthcare system? My personal experience just now, I was in a hospital for a month, almost a month, and obviously I'm free now, but I just wanted to know, because every time I heard something about a procedure I was going to have or something else, the word insurance company kept coming up. And I was put on hold, waiting for the decisions. And you know what? Delays did not help me. Delays seem to be more expensive for me. I was wondering, do you have any ideas or any proposals? Or
I'm just going to be very
how do you handle
real.
this?
I think we need to be very open to what that healthcare system is going to look like. It's my personal opinion that you can't, it's like a rotting foundation. You're not going to like put new siding on a house and it's going to be perfect, right? We have to dig out the foundation of that house and redo the foundation of the house before we can build the house on top of it again, and it's not going to be structurally sound. So in my opinion, we need to change our mindset for healthcare. I think that comes in a couple of different ways. I think that we need to talk, when you talk to people who are middle ground, Republican or MAGA, you need to stop saying like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. It needs to be, we all deserve this. We actually all deserve it. And many years ago, when I worked in a behavioral classroom, I had a student in my classroom who was kind of a bit of a jerk, right? He was 6, so we're forgiving at that age. He completed a math worksheet one day, and I knew he was very motivated by the iPad. And I told him, you can have 15 minutes on the iPad, and you can pick somebody, one of your friends in the classroom that also is gonna get 15 minutes on an iPad, because we are teaching kids to be kind. And he looked at me and he said, never mind, I don't want iPad time. And I said, why don't you want iPad time? And he said, because I don't want any of those people to have iPad time. And I was livid. Honestly, in my head, I was like, this little jerk. Like, I went and called his counselor at the end of the day and I said, Dina, what the heck is wrong with this kid? And he was like, and she's like, oh, that's so easy. He actually doesn't believe he deserved that iPad time. And because he doesn't believe he deserved it, he can never believe that someone else in that classroom deserves it, right? And that's something that we have to build. That's something that we have to build. I believe that most of MAGA is like that. They're like, this has been really difficult in my life. Things have not been easy for me. Why would I give a free pass? Why would I want somebody else to have health insurance for free when I'm paying $3,200 a month for that? And this is why we have to change the psychology of how we talk about it. We have to talk to people, you deserve this as much as I deserve it, as much as Joe Smith down the street deserves it. We all deserve it. We can all see there's an issue. And until everyone's on board, I don't believe we'll be able to root out that faulty foundation of it, because it is a system that would benefit tremendously from socialism in the same way that our fire departments benefit from that, in the same way that our libraries benefit from that, in the same way that our public schools benefit from that. That's my opinion on it. Anybody else? Yes?
Are you familiar with the New York Health Act?
Not right. I mean, I couldn't quote it, but
I know, and believe me, I'm like a news junkie, and I just found out about it like last week. It's a New York State, it's been around, I guess, since 2017, 2018.
1992.
It's like Medicare for all, huh?
1992.
Is it really?
I did not know it was that
And
old.
for me, just to find out, it's 8 hours a day on a computer. It's like Medicare for all for New York State. I think it would be worthwhile looking into with what you were just saying about healthcare, because the way they lay it out, and I'm having an expert accountant look at it, the way that they laid it out, it would not only cover everybody, but it would save a ton of money. So
And the way that insurance works and the way that the hospitals work is a faulty system. It is a completely faulty system. So the hospital bills them $1,000 for an MRI. The insurance system says, well, we're only gonna pay 50% of that. So the next time the hospital bills them $2,000 for the MRI, and they say, okay, well, we'll pay that $1,000, right? But then it increases the cost of an MRI. It bloats the cost of it. There are a lot of things that we need to fix with that, and unfortunately, there is a lot of corruption in our government. And until we elect normal people who have lived real lives, who worry about how they're gonna feed their kids, and who know what it's like to pay an electric bill around here, we will never get out of that mindset. And it's our responsibility to do that. It doesn't have to be me, but it is our responsibility to elect normal, average people. Yes?
So my question is somewhat related. I love one of your legs. I am a school board member and a behavior analyst, and I am all about everything that you talked about related to kids with disabilities. And consultant to the Office of Children and Family Services, to the Division of Juvenile Justice. Those are my needs.
Yeah.
So I love it. The question though that I have is related to a couple of things. One is, a lot of this is really managed by the state. So there's the federal government which provides the money to the state.
Yes.
And then the state decides how they're going to actually use the Medicaid and Medicare systems to pay for things, including early intervention. And so that, I get a little stuck with how to, especially with the dismantling of the education department, how we're going to, because our early intervention system in New York is beyond broken.
Yeah.
Which is causing huge problems for school
Yeah.
districts, because they're coming into the schools, the kids who have never received services they should have received already. And they're getting kicked out of preschool at 4 years old with behavioral issues. And
Those are my kids.
those are my kids. And then I'm on the school board with the other, but that's a state, in many ways, it's a really
It is.
state issue.
It's gonna take work with the state, but I think that, like, with enough pressure and enough support, I think that is a very fair point. I think that early intervention we could save a lot of money in that aspect. Should we have public school open to infancy? Because early intervention is not only paying for a therapist to go out to that person's house, they're not just paying them hourly, they're paying all their gas, they're reimbursing them for it. They're making, it is way higher cost than it would be to have that all in-house, right? And how convenient would it be for parents to be able to drop their 7-year-old off and their 2-year-old off in the same location? There is a childcare desert in New York 24. People are so desperate for childcare, they'll hire, Joe Smith who lives 3 houses down before they want to drive their kid 40 minutes to a daycare. I think that it's going to take work with the state. I think.
Dismantling of the education department, though, we're going to have difficulty supporting the laws and rules and regulations that are already in place, the federal ones right now, much less even thinking about expanding anything.
I am really worried about that. There's a lot to be said for it because I have a child with a disability who gets special education services, and I am a former special education teacher, and I fully understand what we're looking at right now. I just think that we can't run on just I'm anti-Trump and I'm anti what he's doing. It has to come with some fresh new ideas, some new things. And this is one of the things that I've been thinking about for a long time. I don't know precisely how I'm going to implement each step of that, okay? But I do know that I do think that Kathy Hochul is going to hold on to her governor seat. I do. Love it or hate it. I do think she's going to hold on to it. I don't think Elise Stefanik has a chance. And I think that she'll probably win the primary as well. We'll see. But I plan to work with New York State, obviously. And, I thought maybe about just trying to find funding for some pilot programs for that. Have a pilot program that is in each of the most rural areas and fund it through federal funding. The same way that we do charter schools, but instead of a charter school, have it within your local public school, be funded federally, and see how that works out for that community, right? Yes.
We have time for one more.
Okay, getting back to healthcare, yes, our foundation is rotted. How do we get big money out of healthcare? We are a developed nation, and yet our healthcare system is for profit. We have CEOs of hospitals making multi-million-dollar salaries, and yet you get denied left, right, and sideways. So yes, insurance companies are part of this problem, pharmaceutical companies. It's a huge, huge problem.
I think that this actually goes back to our own responsibility to vote normal people into office who are not career politicians.
Yeah.
There's no other way to get around this. It is something that's going to be painful. It's something that's going to take work, and we have to get rid of people who look at politics as, well, I'm owed this,
Right.
or this is the next step in my career, or I'm a lawyer and this just makes sense for me to be doing this job. No. When we do that, we end up with decisions like Citizens United that allows corporations to have unchecked power in our government, in our federal government, which is why we're sitting here today in this situation, right? We have to do the hard work, the actual hard, crappy, blood, sweat, and tears work that it is going to take to root this out of our government. There's no other way around it. And I personally think that we need to elect people based on their moral character and less on whether or not they have, a super detailed plan about how our tax structure is going to work with something. I think it's more important that we have people who have a spine, who can have a little bit more of a screw you attitude towards that, and who are not motivated by what many people are motivated by, for. And unfortunately, politics does attract a certain type of person. Anybody else? Yes.
Let's see, I guess I'll just ask about the, age limits for congressmen. I mean, cutting off the age at 70 or something.
So, I just want to say the oldest member of Congress is Chuck Grassley. He's 94 years old, okay? He has been in Congress since 1959.
Oh my God.
10 years later, man set foot on the moon. 25 years after that, I was born, okay? I'm gonna be 42 in a couple of weeks. That is scary, right? So I don't think it's a matter of age, like what age you are when you get there. I think it's a lot more important that we put limits on how long a person can be there.
Yes.
Because guess what? There's a lot of really intelligent people in their 70s.
Yeah, there's nothing
Okay.
wrong with being 70, right?
There's a lot to be learned from those people. They've lived a lifetime of experience, and if you've got the energy and gumption to get out there and run for office and win, and you're 73 years old, I don't think an age limit should be a problem. I think it's when people sit there and consolidate power for 45 years, for 58 years, that's when it becomes an issue. Chuck Grassley will never get kicked out of Congress. He will die in that seat. Why? Because he has spent since 1959 consolidating that power, building his donor network, and not mentoring anyone to take his place. And that is a serious issue, like not in just one area of our government, but it's something that I have personally guilted Chuck Schumer over. Yeah, I'm not joking. I literally, but the night that they were gonna end the shutdown, I had so many phone calls from people in the region saying, please do something, that I reached out to Chuck Schumer's chief of staff, and shockingly, he called me, which I was like, thanks. I didn't think I was that important. But he called me and he was like, I said, hey, I've had like 40 people reach out to me today. They're very worried about this. Like I've had grandmas tell me that they're gonna skip meals to pay for their ACA subsidy. Like if you get rid of these ACA subsidies, like this is food on people's tables. You need to understand how unpopular this is and do whatever you can to rally your people. We've already made this huge sacrifice for a month and a half for these federal workers. What was the point of that if you're just gonna give in, right? And he said, this was what his chief of staff told me, was that Chuck did not agree with stopping the shutdown at all, but he had senators defecting from him and saying they were gonna do it anyway. And so he has to figure out how to navigate that. But I guilted him right on the spot about it. I'm like, you know, it really bothers me that you're not endorsing like younger, vibrant candidates. Mamdani, like I don't know, this is a little known fact, but Chuck Schumer actually did the taxi protest with Mamdani. They sat in the same cab 3 years ago and did the taxi protest in New York City together. And I said, why wouldn't you endorse him? Like he clearly has this huge following of people. I'm not saying he's perfect. Do I think he could win in upstate New York? Absolutely not. But do I think that he like has a good movement behind him? Yes, and we should be supportive of those people. And like, he made a lot of hem and haw excuses. And I said, you know, it really bothers me. Like, do you think you're gonna live forever? Like, you need to mentor people into these positions, even if they're wrong about something or you disagree with them. And that's something I should encourage every person in this room to do. If you know a young person who likes politics and wants to talk about politics, encourage them to come to your committee meeting. Encourage them to come and get involved and mentor them. You don't have to agree with every single political position they have to understand that a mentorship is something that you're supposed to learn from. And it's like a teenager. If you're like, you are wrong, they're gonna do that a bunch more times. If you are like, hey, great idea, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, and you kind of let them fail on their own, they come back to you for the advice, right? I just think we need to get into a pattern of mentoring people. Younger people need to become involved in politics, and we need to allow them to have the space and the voice to do that.